My love-hate affair with the New York Jets began in 1974, when I was all of 10 years old and obsessed with football. Growing up on New York's Long Island, a stone's throw from Kennedy Airport, I had two pro football teams to choose from to root for, the New York Giants and the New York Jets. I chose the Jets. Why? Because of this guy.
Broadway Joe! Broadway Joe's the greatest of them all!
And I've been paying the price for my allegiance to Joe Willie ever since. I've seen it all cheering on the green and white, and today I look back and highlight what I consider to be the 10 lowest lowlights of my 51 mostly miserable seasons as a fan. These transgressions are listed in the order of their severity, criminality, or ineptitude from least bad to out-and-out disgraceful. So put on your shades and fur coats, kids. Let's go.
Number 10.
Subjective as this may be, the Jets' 2019 uniform change from the iconic prior look to ones a Pee Wee football team would feel silly in ranks as one of the worst NFL uniform reboots ever. Not the worst, mind you. Personally, I think that dubious distinction goes to the 1975 Giants, but it ranks right up there with some of the most ill-advised NFL uniform updates of all time. One positive about them, it wasn't as bad as what they wore the first year they were known as the Jets in 1963. Okay, the jerseys and pants were okay, although personally I'm not the biggest fan of green, but the logo was atrocious. Fun fact, the Jets wear green and white because Sonny Werblin was born on St. Patrick's Day and considered green and white his colors. Mr. Werblin headed a consortium that bought New York's AFL franchise, known as the Titans, in 1963. He promptly changed the name of the team to the Jets. For 1964 and 5, they wore this far superior and somewhat familiar logo to the one many of us have come to embrace as the one of our team. It was deemed hard to see on TV and the colors inverted in 1966. The Jets wore that logo through 1977. 1978 brought about the change to green helmets and a new logo which was worn, with black accenting added in 1990 through 1997. They changed to an updated version of the Joe Namath era uniform in 1998. The big differences being these were hunter green rather than Kelly green. The font for the player numbers was different, and the logo was no longer football-shaped but an oval and was placed horizontally on helmets rather than at an angle to mimic a football being thrown. No doubt for an interception. The Jets made another wholesale change to their look for the 2024 season to a slightly modified version of the 1978 era uniforms.
Number 9.
During the 1983 season, a miserable, underachieving one that saw the Jets go from Super Bowl contender to tied for last place in the AFC East. Then Jets owner Leon Hess, who in 1968 bought out all other owners of the team for sole control, announced that the Jets would move their home games from Shea Stadium in Flushing, Queens to Giant Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey, starting in 1984. In most cities, moving 17 miles in any direction, let alone 17 miles farther away, wouldn't seem like that big of a deal. But in New York, distance all but doesn't matter. What matters is travel time. And the move to Giant Stadium added more than an hour to a commute that could last more than 2 hours door to door for us Jets fans living on Long Island. The Jets' move to Giant Stadium, as close as it is to Manhattan, did nothing to make us New Yorkers feel as though the city was not quite what it used to be either. The 1970s and 80s were dark times for the city, and the Giants moved to New Jersey in 1976, helping to spur the sentiment that our great city was losing its luster as the center of the known universe. If we're being fair, though, the long-since demolished Giant Stadium offered a far superior football fan experience than Shea Stadium ever could. Shea was one of those soulless, multi-purpose concrete bunkers that cropped up at other cities in the 60s and early 70s. They've all been demolished, replaced with singular purpose ones. And seeing the Jets had to play in a stadium that was named after the freaking Giants, it was hard not to feel like unwanted guests, or worse, seeing how well the Giants would do during most of the time the two teams share the stadium, a second-rate team.
Number 8.
When I began curating my list of the worst things to have happened to the Jets during my 51 seasons as a fan, I wanted to stick to global issues rather than individual occurrences. Tough to do considering a number of isolated incidents over the years, like a play known as the butt fumble on Thanksgiving evening in 2012 before a national TV audience. The butt fumble was the centerpiece of a disastrous sequence in the second quarter wherein the Jets lost 3 fumbles and the Patriots scored 3 touchdowns in the span of 52 seconds of game time. In that second quarter, the Jets held the ball for over 12 minutes out of a possible 15, of course, but managed to be outscored 35-3. The butt fumble didn't just crater the game for the Jets, but the 2012 season, and was the metaphorical kickoff of the Jets' now 14-season-long malaise. ESPN ranked it as the most embarrassing moment in Jets history and one of the ineptest plays in NFL history.
Number 7.
In the sober light of hindsight, Bill Belichick's decision to not coach the Jets and instead coach the New England Patriots starting in 2000 was not the big deal it seemed to be at times. After all, Belichick's overall one-loss record without Tom Brady is 83-104, with TB12, of whom I'm a huge fan. He was a staggering 249-75. Throw in their 9 Super Bowl appearances together, including 6 wins, and you get the picture that Belichick made Vince Lombardi, Don Shula, Tom Landry, Chuck Noll, and Bill Walsh seem like Richie Kotite or Adam Gase. Remember, though, Belichick had Brady. Yeah, what could have been had Belichick stayed with the Jets after Parcells retired from coaching after the 1999 season. Well, we'll never know. Belichick's prior head coaching tenure with the Cleveland Browns from 1991 through 1995 netted 36 wins, 44 losses, 1 winning season, and 1 playoff appearance. The truth behind the odd story of Belichick ditching the Jets for the Patriots may never be completely known. The prevailing story goes is that Belichick was weary of the Jets' pending ownership change, was in conversation with the Patriots before Parcells stepped down. Whether it was clandestine or not is conjecture, but it is what it is. Belichick wanted out just 1 day after being named head coach of the Jets. For what it's worth, the Patriots compensated the Jets with their first-round pick in the 2000 draft.
Number 6.
Many a young Jets fan say that Aaron Rodgers blowing out his Achilles tendon 4 plays and 3.5 minutes into the 2023 season was the worst thing they've ever seen. Yes, that was devastating, especially on September 11th and after the grandeur of the opening ceremonies with the Jets and their sack exchange throwbacks and number 8 running onto the field holding the American flag. If ever I've been proud to be an American and a Jets fan at the same time, it was then. Like many Jets fans, I too believe the bad times were over, if at least temporarily. And then, poof. As stupefying as that was, given what a terrible season 2024 was, the impact of that Greek tragedy has lessened significantly. You may recall, as flukish as it was, the Jets won that game with Zach Wilson at the helm. Jets even got out to a 4-3 start in 2023 before losing 5 straight to tank the season. Aaron Rodgers' Achilles tendon rupture, though, child's play, I tell you, child's play. The year was 1999 when another aging man was under center for us, although not as old as Aaron Rodgers, and he too snapped or ruptured his Achilles. His name was Vinny Testaverde, and having lived through both ruptures or tears, Vinny's was worse than Aaron Rodgers's. Not that it may have been any more or less painful for the individual, but in the big picture of all things New York Jets, it was without question worse, way worse. Why? Comes down to the difference between hope and expectation. While both hope and expectation relate to anticipating future events, hope implies a desire for something to happen, often with uncertainty about its likelihood, while expectation suggests a belief that something is likely to occur, often based on evidence or prior experience. When the Jets traded for Aaron Rodgers, which even at the time us crusty and salty older Jet fans knew was a risky, if not goofy proposition, we hoped he'd do well enough to get us to the playoffs, a far-off and enchanted land we haven't seen the light of since the 2010 season. The big difference is that when Vinny Testaverde got hurt, like Aaron Rodgers in the first game of the season, the Jets were coming off a year where they played for the AFC Championship. Our expectation they would do at least that well in 1999, if not better, was, as remarkable as this may sound, in no way, shape, matter, or form, unreasonable. And then, like Rodgers, poof.
Number 5.
In fairness, selecting college athletes for play in the NFL can't be as easy as we all think it is. I mean, how much harder could it be than picking players in gym class to play in our touch football, dodgeball, or basketball teams? Well, apparently it is tougher than anyone thinks, but even so, sometimes the drafting decisions of our Jets over the years stings the nostrils and boggles the mind. Rather than turn this into a diatribe over the Jets' drafting improprieties over the last 5 decades, let's focus on the 1983 draft. a draft deep not only with quarterbacks but talent overall that would feature 7 future Hall of Famers. After the strike-abbreviated 1982 season, a season in which the Jets had played in the AFC Championship game, we had the 24th pick in the first round of the 1983 college draft. With John Elway and Jim Kelly already chosen by the Baltimore Colts and Buffalo Bills respectively, Elway would demand to be traded and was dealt to Denver, wanting a quarterback to replace the aging if not erratic Richard Todd with University of Pittsburgh standout Dan Marino still available. The Jets drafted
Ken O'Brien of California Davis.
At the time, Jet Nation thought little, if anything, of it. After a Heisman Trophy candidate-worthy junior season, Dan Marino's draft capital had dropped considerably due to inconsistent play his senior year at Pitt, and so unfortunate off-the-field transgressions, true or not. Us fans did wonder, though, who the hell is Ken O'Brien? It's not as if Ken O'Brien was a bust. O'Brien had a cannon for an arm, was evasive under pressure, led the NFL in passing yards in 1985, made the Pro Bowl twice, and led us to the playoffs 3 times in 10 seasons. If he was guilty of anything, it was that he was not Dan Marino. Again, being fair, which is more than the Jets organization deserves, it was understandable that the Jets would pass on Marino with their 24th pick, Miami rolling the dice on him with their 27th pick in the draft. To his credit, Marino was an impact player his rookie season with the Dolphins and would go on to have one of the greatest careers in NFL history, passing for more than 61,000 yards and 420 touchdowns. The Marino-led Dolphins made the playoffs 10 times during his 17 seasons, and he was their quarterback in Super Bowl 19, a loss to the 49ers.
Number 4.
So many bad coaches, so many to choose from. But who's the worst Jets coach of all time? Well, Adam Gase, Robert Saleh, and even Lou Holtz, who didn't even make it through a whole season, are right up there with the worst of the very worst. The New York Jets coach who had the worst winning percentage of all time was Richie Kotite, who during his tortured 2-season run managed 4 wins in 32 games for a winning percentage of 157. Let's fire up the old stadium mic to drill that home even more so.
157.
His first season, 1995, the Jets were 3-13, the most losses they had up until that point in a 16-game season. He outdid himself in his second year with the Jets finishing 1-15. The Jets' lone win in 1996, a 31-21 thrashing of the Arizona Cardinals at Sun Devil Stadium in Tempe in Week 9. Oh, how I wanted that 0-16 season. They couldn't even do that right. From questionable staff hires to draft choices to game day tactics, Richie Kotite has gone down in history as not only the worst coach the Jets ever had, again, that's saying a lot, but one of the worst coaches in NFL history. After leaving the Jets following the 1996 season, Kotite not only never coached in the NFL again, he never coached again at any level.
Number 3.
If we have a worse Jets coach, then we have to have a worst quarterback. And if picking the worst coach was tough, actually it wasn't. Picking the worst quarterback the Jets have had in my 51 years as a fan was much tougher because there's just so many of them to choose from. From Cliff Kingsbury to Geno Smith, Sam Darnold to Tim Tebow, Glenn Foley to Quincy Carter to Browning Nagel and so many others. The sheer number of supposedly gifted athletes who have disappointed us by underperforming at the quarterback position is truly remarkable. Why have the Jets had dud after dud after dud after dud after dud since Browning Nagel replaced Ken O'Brien as the starter in 1992? Good question. It's not as though there's something in the water in the Meadowlands that contaminates our quarterbacks. After all, the Giants drink the bilge from the same New Jersey swamp the Jets do, and he swallows hard. Been to the Super Bowl 5 times with 4 wins in my time. Seriously, name one quarterback the Jets have had that gave us the same expect-to-win confidence that, for instance, Josh Allen gives the fans of the Buffalo Bills or Lamar Jackson gives Baltimore Ravens fans. Sorry, retreads like Boomer, Vinny, Brett Favre, and Aaron Rodgers don't count because they came to us at the end of their careers and either didn't play well enough or weren't with us long enough for us to get to trust them. Oh, we blindly trusted them before they broke our hearts, but you know what I mean. To determine the worst Jets quarterback during my 51 seasons as a fan, I tabulated won-loss records, quarterback ratings, total yards, interceptions, touchdown passes, and most importantly, just my gut. That table set. Mirror, mirror on the locker room bathroom wall. Who's the worst New York Jets quarterback of them all? Zach Wilson. With the second pick in a soon-to-be legendary 2021 draft class, the Jets selected Wilson, who was considered a fringe prospect until he tore up BYU's COVID pandemic-altered 2020 schedule. Sure, Justin Fields was clearly an elite prospect from the time he was still in high school, although he didn't turn out to be the next Patrick Mahomes. But the Jets passed on him because Wilson made a cool throw at his pro day. They also passed on Jamar Chase and Micah Parsons and so on and so on and so on. Jet busts like Mark Sanchez and Sam Darnold failed to live up to their high draft positions, but Wilson has been one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL since he was drafted and, perhaps unfairly, thrust into a starting position. And that's the empathetic father in me saying that, since Zach is roughly the same age as my two sons. There weren't many moments of top-tier play from Wilson for us to cling to. In fact, it's hard to identify a single good game he had as the Jets quarterback. The problem with Zach Wilson is that despite having the physical ability, he was not meant to be an NFL quarterback. He struggles when tasked with coming off his first read. He's unable to adjust protections or identify rushes at the line and processes what he sees slowly. In addition, his inaccuracies make each throw inconsistent. His decision-making puts his team in danger, and he struggled to connect with teammates. In 3 years with the Jets, Wilson had a 13-21 one-loss record, completed 566 of 993 passing attempts for 6,293 yards, 23 touchdowns, and 25 interceptions. But Wilson's demise is no fault of his own. He was unqualified for the job. That's not on him. The real failure was the Jets deciding to select him. Following the 2023 season, the Jets traded Wilson and a 7th-round pick to the Denver Broncos for a 6th-round pick. Then Coach Robert Saleh said, quote, "I still believe he's going to have a good career."
Number 2.
I wasn't thinking. If I could go back and do it again, I sure as heck take a step back. It was just a situation where I just wasn't thinking.
Sal Alosi grew up not far from where I did on Long Island and played football at Massapequa High School and later nearby Hofstra University, what us Long Islanders refer to as the Harvard of Hempstead. In the early 2000s, the Jets' home base was still on the Hofstra campus, so it was not out of the realm of possibility that the Jets would look across Hempstead Turnpike to find an assistant strength and conditioning coach.
And we want to pump you up.
Alosi began working as an assistant S&C coach with the Hofstra football, lacrosse, and basketball teams after he graduated in 2001. Prior to the 2002 season, the Jets had a need in the weight room, and apparently one thing led to another. Hey, why go through the rigmarole and expense of bringing in someone from another team to teach the players how to bench press when someone's in your backyard? Stranger things have happened. Alosi had first worked with the Jets from 2002 to 2005 during the Herman Edwards administration, which, coincidentally or not, ended in 2005. Alosi then joined the Atlanta Falcons in 2006, but returned to the Jets in 2007 when Eric Mangini was head coach. Alosi survived the coaching change from Mangenius to Rex Ryan. During a Jets home game against Miami in 2010, Alosi instructed inactive Jets players to form a wall along the sideline to inhibit opposing players from avoiding being blocked when they ran out of bounds. As Nolan Carroll of the Dolphins was running upfield to cover a punt, he did, in fact, run out of bounds in front of the wall of Jets inactive players and Alosi. It was then that Alosi stuck out his left knee into the path of Carroll, tripping him and sending him flying.
Well, this is just uncalled for in the NFL. Not sure who that person is, but they should be ashamed of themselves.
Alosi was suspended indefinitely by the Jets and fined $25,000. The NFL fined the Jets $100,000 as well. Then Jets head coach Rex Ryan denied any prior knowledge of the incident nor Alosi's instructions to wall off the sideline. Many coaches and NFL executives took issue with Ryan's claims. When Robert Wood Johnson IV bought the Jets from the estate of the late Leon Hess for $635 million in the year 2000, few people had ever heard of him, let alone knew anything about him. He seemed so mysterious and elusive. Who was this man, the great-grandson of the founder of the Johnson & Johnson empire who bought our team? And being Jets fans, can he get us coupons for Band-Aids, gauze, and tongue suppressors? It's not news that Woody Johnson's ownership of the Jets has been unusual. Of late, though, as the playoff drought has gotten worse and worse, the behind-the-scenes shenanigans and his meddling, which apparently he's done since day one, have come more and more to light. This past season alone, the evisceration of an injured Mike White, to the story of his 18-year-old son Brick giving a game ball to Garrett Wilson, to the use of Madden ratings and player personnel decisions, to the midseason firings of Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas, makes Jet Nation wonder if an adult is home minding the kids.
Boys, I'm eating junk and watching rubbish. You better come out and stop me.
For the record, the Brickster is named after Jets legend DeBrickashaw Ferguson. He's actually Robert Wood Johnson V. You know, as if anything anyone could write, say, blog, or vlog could change the course of the ownership of the Jets, thus, in theory, change the possible trajectory of our team in the near future. Better the devil you know. I think most gangreeners would be willing to roll the dice to see if we could get a better owner. But let's be real. The best we can hope for is Woody has been so embarrassed by recent events that he amends the way he operates the team. Don't seem like he's got no plans to sell the team, though. I'd say we passed the hat around to collect money to buy the team from him, but according to Forbes, the Jets are currently worth just a scooch under $7 billion. Hey, New York Knicks owner James Dolan changed his ways when it was exposed what a terrible owner he is, and look at the Knicks now. No, they're hopelessly mediocre, but they are better. Doesn't seem like pharmaceutical research that all Woody Johnson needs to do is hire the right GM and coach and then let them do their jobs. That or the Jets somehow luck out and get a Patrick Mahomes quality quarterback.
Are Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji the answer?
Didn't we think Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas were the answer? Somewhat ironically, as far as wins and losses go during Woody's time as the Jets' ultimate being, we do not have the worst record in the NFL. That dubious distinction belongs to the Cleveland Browns, who have a dismal .347 winning percentage. The Jets, .428, positively Pittsburgh Steelers-like. The Browns are followed by the Jaguars, Lions, Raiders, Commanders, and Cardinals. Then, air quotes, us. If that makes you feel better, I'd have to question how green your blood flows. In conclusion, friends, on my list of the top 10 lowest lowlights in my 51 seasons as a New York Jets fan, seems Woody Johnson's purchase of the team, until proven differently, is the lowest lowlight of them all.
In my 51 seasons as a New York Jets fan, the Jets have 343 regular season wins, 452 losses, and 2 ties for a .43 winning percentage. They've made the playoffs 12 times, with 8 playoff wins, 3 AFC Championship game appearances, 2 division titles. In comparison, the New York Football Giants have a record of 377, 424, and 3 for a .469 winning percentage, which, if we're being honest, really isn't that much better. What hurts, though, is how the Giants have performed in the playoffs. 16 playoff appearances, 20 playoff wins, 6 division titles, and 5 Super Bowl appearances, with 4 wins. Bottom line, Jet Nation, we stink. And have stinked for years, and there's no reason to believe we won't smell like a day-old used diaper for years to come. Hate to be such a Debbie Downer, especially with Aaron Glenn, who I love coming in to coach the team. Jury's out on this fresh-faced kid who's now our GM, but I'm hoping against hope. Although, remember, our quarterback will turn 42 in the midst of my 52nd season as a fan. Thanks for watching my diatribe on my favorite NFL team. I'm sure you have your own worst or best moments as a Jets fan as well, so please feel free to like and comment below and subscribe while you're at it too. See you this fall, Gangrene.